Welcome back to Ethan's Basement. For these videos, I usually like to get inspired by questions that I see come up often on the subreddit, and one that I see the most is in regard to the different shows on different days of the week, and what are their origins and main differences. So in that video, I will explain the differences and similarities of each show, but also when and why they were introduced and how they've evolved since they started. Let's start with the first show of the week, the Monday show, H3 TV. On July 2021, the first episode of H3 TV was uploaded to YouTube, but it's not the first one because they were originally streamed on Twitch without being posted on YouTube at first. But the switch from a different platform confused some of the fans, and also some people would record the streams and upload them on YouTube before the official channel could upload it. There was even an unofficial H3 TV YouTube channel that popped up and created even more confusion. So they eventually switched back to YouTube live streaming to be able to post the full stream directly on the channel. Like many Twitch shows, it was supposed to be more like a reaction live stream where they watch videos or even play video games. That's also some of the first times Ethan trained his debate abilities, because at the beginning, he had a couple Zoom calls with big Twitch streamers like Hassan, Aiden Ross, and XQC, and where they debated the ethics of crypto gambling when it was still allowed on Twitch. But the show quickly changed to be more interactive with the audience, and the idea of fan calling in to discuss something, tell a crazy story, or defend an opposing view with Ethan. So they made it like a call-in show instead. But it quickly became problematic to have random people calling in to sometimes tell very long or uninteresting stories. To resolve this, each of the crew members got buttons to be able to vote to hang up on a caller, and Ethan would hang up if multiple crew members pressed their button as a way to not drag on a call for too long. This is also when the infamous troller girl would call in pretending to be different persons. So they started to not trust any female voice that would call in thinking it was her. Ethan tried to rebrand it to a Make Ethan Laugh segment and win $100 if a caller managed to do so, which did not last long. Nowadays, this show is very similar to Off the Rails and is mostly talking about recent news or internet-related drama and lasts about 3 hours. The main difference is the green screen background that's recently been updated to a beach with a H3 surfboard in the sand. Now for the Tuesday show, See You Next Tuesdays, aka the members-only live stream. The first episode was posted in September 2022, so this is the most recent one that was introduced. It started as a way to offer more value to the channel memberships with one extra show a week. The concept is simple, and it's very similar to most just chatting streams you can see on Twitch. It's Ethan in his basement, watching videos, reading news, and chatting with the audience. However, it wasn't always like that, because it started as a pre-recorded audio-only podcast in a storytelling format for the first few episodes, and later became a live stream to interact with the chat and reacting to short videos or subreddit posts. Ethan usually leaks personal information or thinks he's showing us something while having it opened on the wrong screen. It's the most chaotic show of the week in the true Off the Rails, mostly because this is the only show without the button, which erases the last 20 seconds if needed. In the meantime, the crew is usually in the studio during that day to prep for future episodes and are usually texting Ethan to try to keep him on the rails. They usually last an hour and a half. So it's the shortest show of the week, and its main appeal is Ethan's interactions with the chat, which is much more manageable than the other shows. And the name, as an acronym, translates to one of the few words that isn't allowed to be said on YouTube, apparently. Also, if you are interested, on my second channel, I edit highlights of this live stream where I remove the silences and chewing sounds. Link in the description. The Wednesday show, Off the Rails. In May 2021, the inaugural Off the Rails episode came out with Ethan only as a host, which was rare at the time. But due to Hila's work at Teddy Fresh and also her pregnancy, she started appearing less frequently on the show. So Ethan seized this opportunity to create a more spontaneous and unpredictable show with a boy-only crew at the time. This is actually the beginning of Goblin Mode, Ethan. And at the time, it was the most likely show of the week to get him involved in more lawsuits. It was also originally pre-recorded and was the dedicated show where they would produce sketches that would require more preparation during the weekend, and that would be filmed and edited to be played during the usual podcast format of the show. Nowadays, it's not pre-recorded, as they decided to do all their show live, mainly to be able to increase the number of shows they could make each week. Because for years, it was Ethan's plan to have 5 shows a week. So it became a more chill, regular podcast format, with usually not too much preparation and mainly talking about recent internet drama or news that happened during the weekend. The green screen background is a reference to the Ohio train accident, and of course the name Off the Rails that Cam created when they decided to update the backgrounds to differentiate the shows. As you will see later in this video, it's not the only show where the concept changed a lot since it first came out. Now for the Thursday show, Leftovers. On September 2021 came the successor of Frenemies and the Short-Lived Families, where Ethan would have a regular co-host dynamic with another creator. When it was teased, I don't think anyone suspected Hassan to be the new co-host, even though it made sense considering their recent collaborations on these Zoom calls debating against the crypto gambling situation. This particular show focuses in leftist politics in a comedic way, mostly dunking on right-wing figures. They also talk about Twitch as a platform and what popular streamers are up to, since Hassan has the advantage of being on both platforms and knowing personally a lot of big Twitch names. Ethan apparently came up with the name because of their left-leaning politics, but also because he would try to save all the political topics for that day and not talk about it too much on the other shows, since people didn't really like him talking about politics during the regular podcast. Although it's kind of hard to avoid it, since some political topics also offer some goofs and gaffes that are worth mentioning during the rest of the week. During that show, not much has changed, but you can notice at the beginning, they always had sponsors and would do an ad read, compared to now where it seems like they decided to only promote Teddy Fresh instead. I'm guessing Hassan was more comfortable with that, considering he doesn't have sponsors for his usual content and relies on ad revenue and donations only. This show is also on a green screen background, parodying Alex Jones's InfoWars set, but Ethan and Hassan aren't really sitting that close to each other in the set, as it was originally filmed during a lot of COVID regulations. Thanks to the green screen, they are edited to be in the same shot, and they have kept that same setup since then. This show usually lasts 2 hours, and it's the earliest show of the week because after that, Hassan goes back home and starts his day of streaming. And now, the Friday show, After Dark, introduced in August 2020, it was the first time they decided to create a different show than the regular podcast episode. It was originally supposed to be fully supported by members, so they could show and talk about more not safe for work content that could get the episode demonetized, but it eventually changed to just a regular show where they go over and do anything worth talking about. But it's the only show with Hilla, so it's usually more chill. They debrief on the week, and they usually wait for this show to do all sorts of crew challenges they had in mind because everyone is present that day. It was also the only actual live show they did for a little while. All the rest were pre-recorded with a 1-day early release for members with no ads, which they stopped since now everything is live. This is also the only show inside the studio without a green screen background, allowing Ethan or Hilla to wear green clothes on that day. But I have to say, considering the name of the show, I always thought they should make a darker and more minimalist set to allow the custom neon sign behind to shine more and for a different kind of vibes to fit the name better. Last but not least, the original H3 podcast show. It was the original default name for every single episode until August 2020 before After Dark was introduced, but now it's reserved for guest interview specials only. What changed compared to before is the fact that they were originally pre-recorded, but now they are live, which is probably more stressful for guests that aren't used to live streaming, which I'm sure makes it harder to have guests willing to come on. Like After Dark, it's not filmed on a green screen, but Ethan is in front of a brick wall and they are sitting at a table with different cameras switching from a wide shot to medium shots of Ethan and the guests separately. So in total, there is between 12 and 15 hours a week of content, depending on if you are a member of the channel. And as you can see, all the different shows evolved a lot since they were originally introduced, and are all meant to be watched to not miss any new meme or reference that could be referenced later on, except for the members live and leftovers, of course. Anyway, I hope you found this video informative. Here's a quick tip. If you want to find the episodes in order, someone has been keeping a playlist of every episode since the first one in order. Since they are all over the place on the channel, considering some of them are under the live tab and others under the video tab, just type all H3 podcast in order in the search bar. With that much content each week, it can be hard to keep up with every new meme and soundbite. And that's exactly why I make these videos, for long-time listeners or new viewers trying to catch up. Thanks for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons whose support makes it possible for me to create new videos. So, Jade Gary, Purple Fire, Sarah Boggs, Skylar, Michael Kruzewski, Lauren Corriveau, Alicia D, and #1 Helen Keller Hater. Love ya, no homo.